So I'm back to working on the FJ furniture, and specifically because I had posted a couple things to the FJ forum, and again, the forum came through, and somebody saw my post, decided he would give me some information about a framing company, another German framing company, not the one I use, but I think they're called Item. And he provided a link to it, and I went and looked at it, and they had some interesting ways of doing linear slides using the slots in the framing, and it got me thinking. I was like, I was planning on using the slot for or the T slot for sliding part of my cot, and I'm going to show you that right now. So excuse this. So that's something I'll talk about in a minute. But anyway, that's how I get the extension I need in the cot to make it long enough to sleep on. But it got me thinking. I was like, I had this idea about using these so-called large head screws and incorporating that into the T slot so that the slide would happen actually using those big head screws. They would fit very nicely into the T slot, but they don't fit perfectly. That's not really what they're for. They're not designed for sliding. I just thought it'd be an interesting way to do it and a cheap way to do it. But then I started thinking, well, this cot extension has to work. I mean, it has to work. I'm going to be using this a lot. I don't want this thing to break. I don't want it to feel clunky. I don't want, and I just want something that I know is going to work. So I started looking at and doing a little bit more research into the available products from my framing vendor. And because they do so much linear motion stuff for industrial applications, they actually had something that I think is going to work really well. And basically, it's a two-part thing. There's a rail that can be mounted in different orientations, and then there's a car or glide that essentially rolls on roller-bearing wheels. Really nice. There's 3 of these wheels per car. I'm going to show you that in a minute. But that car can then be attached to the thing that actually slides, and that can actually that can just fit into the rail. So now I have a really easy way to assemble this whole thing because I can build this part of it, the part that slides the cot extension, and then I can just add the car to it and then just fit it right into the rail. Now let me show you the rail. So essentially, it's an aluminum extrusion, and it has rollers bearing surfaces that are steel. And again, there's 3 wheels, but the wheels are offset slightly so that you can adjust the tension and the height, essentially, because it's 3. And there's a little bit of room here to adjust the height up and down, which is I'll leave it to the Germans. So I have no idea how much these things are going to cost, but I think it's worth it because I really need this thing. Go back to the original scene. I need this thing to work, and I don't want it to break. So that's the first thing. So now this whole thing is going to glide really easily. And let me show you the magic of SketchUp. I can elevate the cot section because there's something I want to show, and kind of show you what that looks like. So let's go to the next scene. Okay, so now it's going to glide really easily. It's going to roll really easily, and you can see down here, there's the top of the rail and then the framing that the rail attaches to, and it basically just bolts into the T-slot of the framing. It's very slick. Everything is dimensionally modular, so which is the great part of the system that I'm using. So you know it's going to work. You know it's going to fit perfectly. and that rail is not going to be any higher than the framing piece. If I bolt it correctly, it's almost foolproof. It just bolts with 8mm bolts and T-nuts. And then I'm going to put some very thin, extremely thin Teflon tape on top of these bearing surfaces, because it's essentially the underside of that plywood, that Baltic birch plywood, is going to rest on that. And I want a little bit of separation. So that's basically what the Teflon tape is going to do. But it's super thin. It's 0.005 inches thick. It's almost nothing. But it's just enough to create a little bit of separation between that so it doesn't bind up. So now I've got something that's going to slide really easily. And I start thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to be driving. And the top, unless there's something sitting on top of that cot piece, or even with something sitting on top of it, it's gonna roll, and it's gonna come forward, and it's gonna be sort of banging back and forth while I'm driving. And that's not gonna be good. So I need a solution for that. And also, from my framing vendor, they have some position, they call it positioning fixing, but it's basically a way to actually kind of control the position of something. And they have this plunger, which is designed to the end of it, you can see poking down here, is designed to fit into basically an 8mm hole in something. And they make they call them slot connectors, and those slot connectors have 8mm holes in them. Some of the holes can be used for set screws to hold it in place, and some can be left without set screws to accept the plunger, just this pin that comes down. So let me show you how this works. So that's just going to go, when I want to release the cot extension, all I have to do is pull the plunger up and then slide it. I hold it up just to clear all the framing, and then once it clears the framing, I can release it. It also makes for a kind of a nice little handle. So now I've got something I can pull on. Now I already have a finger pull on this thing, but this is going to be right there, right by that seat, and easy to get to. So let me close that. So that's, it's just a very simple spring-loaded plunger. Also, I have no idea how much this is going to cost. Hopefully not that much. But a really elegant and relatively simple way to hold this in place. So all I have to do is I have to put that slot connector at the position where I want it to be held while I'm driving, and then when it's time to pull the extension apart, make the bed, pull the plunger up, slide it, release the plunger, it's good to go. Now, I am going to have a 4-inch Hest foamy mattress sitting on top of this cot, extension. So I need to accommodate that somehow. And so I've been thinking, okay, so it can't be that difficult to modify the mattress. And this is a couple inches tall. So I just need I need a little hole in the fabric on the bottom. I need sort of a receptor cavity in the foam, so I can fit that right over this plunger, and it'll be really easy. And not only will it be good, but it'll also kind of hold the mattress in place in case it wants to slide around, which I kind of doubt it will, but you never know. All right, let's go to the next scene. I want to show you the glide car. So you can see it here. You can see the 3 wheels. Those wheels are designed to roll on those steel rods that are part of the rail, and this is going to get bolted to this angle. So I've got an aluminum angle. So it's 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, 1/8 inch thick, square corner. The end of of my typical extrusion framing is going to bolt into this angle, and then it's also this is going to be attached to the plywood. I'm going to bolt down from the top into it. But then to connect that car, all I'm doing is just bolting with 8mm bolts right into tapped holes that are already part of the car. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, let's go back. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And then the only thing I really had to do to accommodate this in my framing, I had to turn a lot of the framing pieces essentially upside down, because I needed the T-slot that aligns with all of this to be on the bottom and not the top of my asymmetrical profiles. And so I had to basically turn a lot of pieces upside down. It's not that difficult to do. And yeah, so I had to reconfigure a few things, and then I of course I had to change the framing of this component, this sliding component, from an extrusion that runs this way to this angle, and the angle's cheaper than the extrusion, so saved a little bit of money, maybe a little bit of weight too, but I don't know. I think the whole thing's going to balance out with the weight of the rails. I have no idea how heavy those are, but they're pretty beefy extrusions. So anyway, let's go back to the car. And so this is, and I can go back to scene 1. Voila. And boom. Put that back down. So yeah, again, we're at the stage of the design where we're really fine-tuning things and really kind of thinking about how things are actually going to be made. I'm pretty sure that the big head approach is going to work. In fact, I'm using it for a little table on another project, just because I have some vertical height constraints and I can't fit that rail in and still make it work. So I'm using the big head approach for that, but it's just a table. There's not a lot of weight being put on it, unlike this, where I'm going to be lying on it, and there's a pretty significant cantilever of that thing off the front of this. It's going to be supported by this section of framing here, but it's a pretty significant cantilever. And because that car is going to be so well fit into the rails, and the rails are going to be so well secured to the framing, I have no fear of this cantilever whatsoever. Yeah, the only thing is, I've got this plunger thing that I need to accommodate as part of the the mattress and dealing with that, but it's not a big deal. I think that's going to be pretty easy. But I think it's a pretty elegant solution, and yeah, and I really appreciate the input from that individual in the FJ forum. It's always good to post there, because I always get some really good suggestions and comments, and it really kind of gets me, gets the creative juices going sometimes. Anyway, hope you enjoy. As always, any comments or questions, I will do my best to answer. Thanks so much. Bye.